She said, "I'm going to date around, but don't you dare move on. I might come back." So, I blocked her everywhere. Now, she's panicking because her backup plan disappeared. 3 years with Ava Reynolds felt like building something solid. The kind of relationship where you actually discussed mortgage rates and weekend plans. My name is Ethan Cole, 30 years old, senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Portland. A man who believed in order, in quiet routines, in the kind of stability that doesn't trend online, but lasts in the real world. For 3 years, Ava Reynolds had been my home. Or at least, I thought she was when we first met. She was working as a marketing assistant at a small family agency. She had this calm enthusiasm for the simple things: campaigns for local bakeries, fundraiser projects for community centers. She'd talk about the joy of telling real stories, and I believed her. I believed everything about her. We built a rhythm: Sunday grocery runs, evening walks after dinner, quiet talks about buying a condo someday, maybe starting a family once we both felt ready. But all of that began to unravel the day she got the offer from Zenith Collective, the glimmering agency downtown that handled luxury brands and tech startups with too much money and too little humility. I remember the email notification flashing across her phone as she gasped and covered her mouth. "Ethan, this could change everything." I didn't know everything included me. Within 2 weeks, the Ava I knew, cardigans, messy buns, laughter over thrift store finds, was gone. Her world became filtered through sleek office glass and rooftop bars. She spoke in phrases she never used before: personal branding, networking capital, authentic creative experience. I tried to keep up, to stay supportive, but every conversation felt like trying to hold water in my hands. Dinner turned into her scrolling through co-workers' Instagram stories, bottomless brunches, neon parties, and self-love retreats. Her laughter was different, too sharper, performative, like it had to be seen to exist. When I suggested a weekend getaway like we used to do, she smiled absent-mindedly, eyes still on her phone. "Ethan, you're always planning something," she said. "Can't we just see where life takes us?" I didn't realize then that life was taking her straight into Liam Carter's office, her new creative director, 34, divorced, the kind of man who wore $1,000 sneakers to client meetings and called himself a visionary. I'd seen his name appear on her phone often enough, usually followed by a text she'd turn face down the moment I entered the room. He had the charisma of someone who thrived on being admired. Ava drank it in like oxygen. She started quoting him at dinner. "Liam says most people settle too early because they're afraid of missing out. Liam thinks monogamy limits emotional growth. Liam believes stability kills creativity." Every mention of him chipped away at the person I thought I knew. One night, I looked up from my laptop, spreadsheet open, tracking our savings, and asked, "Do you agree with him?" She paused, eyes flickering, then whispered, "Maybe. He has a point." That was the first time I felt my chest tighten with a fear I couldn't name. 3 months later, she came home late, perfume I didn't recognize clinging to her like a confession. She stood at the kitchen counter, fidgeting with her phone before finally meeting my eyes. "Ethan," she said, "we need to talk. It's strange how words can end an entire world." She talked about personal growth, about how we both needed space to explore who we were outside of each other. She said she wanted to date around, to experience life, but that we didn't have to end things, just redefine them. "We can still be us," she said, smiling like it was a favor, just not exclusively. It wasn't a conversation. It was a script. I could hear Liam's voice behind every line. When I asked if there was someone else, she hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. "Liam and I just have amazing creative chemistry," she said. "He helps me see possibilities I never considered before." Possibilities. That was her word for betrayal. I opened her phone that she left unlocked on the counter, a habit she'd never worried about before, and found weeks of messages that confirmed what I already knew. Long midnight chats, emotional rehearsals for the speech she gave me, paragraphs about how she felt trapped in domestic predictability, how I was safe but uninspiring. For 3 years I thought I was her anchor. In her eyes, I'd become her cage. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just stared at her and asked one question: "So what do you expect from me now?" She shrugged, almost innocently. "I just hope you'll understand." Maybe wait. See what happens. Wait. That word sat between us like poison. She wanted me as a safety net, steady, loyal, predictable, while she wandered into someone else's arms. That night, when she packed a bag to stay at her friend's place for a few days, I stayed up in silence. The apartment still smelled like her shampoo, her perfume, her lies. And somewhere between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., I decided something simple. If she wanted to explore life without commitment, she could do it without me in it. I erased her, not in anger, but precision, methodical, cold, like archiving a corrupted file. Blocked her on everything: Instagram, LinkedIn, email, even Venmo. Changed passwords, scrubbed photos, reset privacy settings. I didn't post anything. I just vanished. By morning, I was a ghost in the life she used to control. For the first time in years, my mornings were completely silent. No clinking mugs, no hairdryer hum from the bathroom, just the faint hiss of my coffee machine and the hum of the refrigerator. The apartment felt larger without her presence, like the air itself had more room to breathe. I thought silence would crush me. It didn't. It sharpened me. At first, she didn't notice. Why would she? People like Ava always assume the world waits while they explore themselves. She texted me 3 days later. Hey, just checking in. How are you holding up? I didn't reply. A few hours later, another. Ethan, I hope you're not being dramatic. This isn't goodbye, it's growth. Still, I said nothing. Silence was my weapon now. That same week, her posts began to shift tone. Mirror selfies captioned, "Becoming my truest self." Boomerangs of rooftop cocktails. Snapshots with Liam's unmistakable silhouette reflected in the glass behind her. She wanted me to see, but I had already deleted her existence from my feed. A week turned into 2. Then she began messaging from alternate accounts, first casual, then curious, then desperate. Did you block me? Can we talk like adults? Ethan, please don't do this. The irony was exquisite. The woman who had wanted freedom now panicking at the absence of control. Meanwhile, my life began to rebuild itself, not with noise, but structure. I started running again, reconnected with friends I'd pushed aside during the relationship, spent nights reading instead of waiting for her texts. My routine, once ordinary, became a quiet sanctuary. But what she didn't know, what no one at Zenith knew, was that my silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. See, I worked with numbers, with audits, with fine details that people overlook until it's too late. And Ava, in her pursuit of glamour, had forgotten who once helped her set up her taxes, her freelance contracts, her expense spreadsheets. I still had a cloud backup of everything she'd sent me last year: expense reports, work invoices, travel reimbursements. At first, I hadn't meant to open them, but one late night, curiosity slipped through restraint. Inside, I found patterns: receipts from trips marked client events that didn't match her calendar, duplicate entries under the same date, invoices paid twice to the same vendor, small inconsistencies that might have gone unnoticed, except they all pointed back to one name: Liam Carter. He wasn't just her creative director. He was routing project expenses through her freelance portfolio, padding costs, inflating budgets, and signing off under a shared authorization. They were using company resources for their little escapades, retreats, client dinners, even a private photography weekend in Tahoe disguised as brand immersion. It would have been poetic justice to expose them outright, but I didn't want theatrics. I wanted inevitability. So I packaged everything neatly. I built a quiet, anonymous email with timestamped receipts, organized folders, and labeled transactions. Then, using a throwaway VPN, I sent the entire archive to Zenith's internal compliance officer, a woman named Carla Jenkins, known for her ruthless efficiency. No message, no signature, just data. 3 days later, the dominoes began to fall. Ava's Instagram activity slowed. Her posts shifted from vibrant neon to muted selfies captioned with things like "Sometimes endings are beginnings in disguise." I knew what that meant before anyone said a word. By the end of the week, Liam's profile vanished entirely. His LinkedIn listed former creative director. An industry blog hinted at an internal audit following allegations of misuse of company funds. I didn't need confirmation. I'd seen enough corporate cover-ups to recognize when someone was quietly escorted out of the building. Ava didn't message me for nearly a month after that, until one rainy Thursday night. Her name lit up on my screen again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Ethan. I don't know what happened, but everything's falling apart. Liam's gone. They're saying there was some kind of report, and I might be implicated. Did you hear anything? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I placed the phone face down, like she used to do when Liam texted her. No response. The next morning, she tried again. Please, I just need to talk. I made mistakes, okay? But I never meant to hurt you. Maybe we can start over. Start over? With what? The ashes of what she burned. Still, silence. That weekend, a friend from her old agency told me in passing that Ava had been temporarily suspended. While Zenith's board sorted through the audit, her name was quietly removed from active campaigns. She'd lost the shine she'd traded everything for. Part of me expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt peaceful. Justice, when done quietly, doesn't roar. It exhales. I moved apartments soon after, packed what little I had left of that life, a few books she'd never read, a sweater she once bought me for Christmas, the plant she said we'd raise together but forgot to water. I left it all behind. A month later, while signing the new lease, I got a final text. I'm leaving Portland, going back home to Denver for a while. I hope someday you can forgive me. Forgiveness. Another word people use to absolve themselves of consequence. I didn't reply. By then, my silence had become something sacred, an echo she would never escape. 6 months passed before I saw her name again. It wasn't in my inbox, not in my phone. It was buried deep in a news brief on a business site I check every morning, just a passing headline. Former Zenith Collective employee files wrongful termination claim amid ongoing audit investigation. The article didn't name her directly, but I didn't need it to. It mentioned a junior marketing manager involved with project. Discrepancies linked to her superior, the same superior who now worked for a startup in San Diego under an alias Pava Reynolds. My Ava had become a footnote in someone else's corporate damage control. That night, I sat on my balcony, a glass of whiskey in hand, the city humming below. I thought about how love can dissolve not in an explosion, but a quiet erosion, one unchecked compromise at a time. I thought about how I'd once believed I couldn't live without her, and how absurd that sounded now. Still, I couldn't pretend the revenge didn't satisfy something raw inside me. Not joy, never that. More like balance. A sense that the universe, indifferent as it is, sometimes lets you nudge the scale yourself. About a week later, she reached out again, this time through email. A new address. The subject line was simple: closure, Ethan. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I've been back in Denver for a few months now, living with my sister and trying to figure out who I am without all of that. I lost my job, my apartment, my friends. The agency world moves fast. One mistake and you're done. I thought I was chasing freedom, but I was just running from myself. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry for everything. I read it twice, slowly. Every line was carefully measured, restrained, repentant, but something about it felt rehearsed, like another performance. Guilt written in professional language. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I looked her up out of curiosity. Her Instagram, once a parade of ambition, was now private. Her LinkedIn had been wiped clean. No positions, no endorsements, just a quiet blank slate. People think starting over means erasing the past. It doesn't. It means learning to live with the version of yourself that did those things. And maybe, I thought, that was punishment enough. But fate, it seems, wasn't quite done drawing its symmetry. 3 months later, during a regional finance conference in Seattle, I attended a panel on digital ethics and expense auditing. When I walked into the room, scanning for a seat, I froze. There she was, front row, hair darker, posture smaller, dressed in muted gray instead of her usual bold colors. She didn't notice me. Not at first. The moderator introduced her. Next, we have Ava Reynolds, consultant at Betrayal Recovery. She'll be sharing a case study on workplace integrity and personal accountability. My heart slowed. She was standing at the podium, speaking carefully, voice trembling slightly, as she described how ethical compromise can begin with emotional compromise. No names, No direct confessions, but I could hear the ghosts behind every word. Sometimes, she said, we hurt people who never deserved it because we confuse attention with love. And when the spotlight fades, what's left is silence. That silence can destroy you or teach you who you are. Our eyes met near the end of her talk. Just a flicker. She faltered mid-sentence, then gathered herself, finishing strong when the applause came. I didn't move. I waited until the crowd dispersed. She lingered near the exit, looking down at her phone as if rehearsing what she might say. Finally, she approached me, Ethan. Her voice was softer now, stripped of all the brightness I used to know. I didn't think I'd see you here, I nodded. Neither did I. There was a pause, long, fragile, filled with everything unsaid. I wanted to tell you in person, she said quietly. You were right to walk away. I was lost. I thought I was winning something, but all I did was burn bridges. I deserved everything that happened. She looked down, twisting her ringless fingers. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say thank you for the silence. It forced me to face myself. That line stayed with me long after she walked away. Because in that moment, I realized my revenge had never been about destruction. It was about truth, about forcing someone who weaponized emotion to finally confront their reflection. I never told her what I did. She never asked. Some truths don't need witnesses, they just need weight. Months later, I received a letter in the mail, postmarked from Denver. No return address, just a handwritten note inside. I've started over, working with a nonprofit that helps young professionals navigate ethics in marketing. It's small, but it feels right. You don't owe me anything, but I owe you my peace. I folded the note and placed it inside my desk drawer, next to a small photograph of us taken years ago at a farmer's market, her laughing, my arm around her shoulders. For a second, I wondered if the man in that photo would recognize the one sitting here now. He wouldn't, and that's okay. Because revenge isn't always fire. Sometimes it's air, silent, unseen, slowly suffocating the illusions that once controlled you. Ava learned that lesson the hard way. I learned it the quiet way. And in the end, we both got exactly what we deserved.